Hey there everybody, Eric from Outer Limitless coming at you today with another video. Now in today's video we are going to look at this Gryphus Bowie from Condor tool and knife. A really cool blade designed by the talented Joe Flowers. Joe has a ton of designs in the Condor lineup. This one here, 2022 offering, the Gryphus Bowie. Now at this point, I have put this to some good use. A really awesome, slicey, and just capable knife. Interesting overall shape, very interesting size, but a well-designed and ample camp knife. Just a general purpose knife. Again, just really cool. So what we're going to do today, we're going to take a look at this in detail. First, we're going to go out into the field. We're going to put this through some good quality field use, typical outdoor tasks for me. If you've been watching my channel, you realize I'm into the outdoor sort of firecraft tasks. That's exactly where this is going to come into play. Then we're going to come back here into the studio, look at it in a little more detail, and then I'll give you my final thoughts. But with that said, I have a whole bunch to do and a whole bunch to share with you. And if you're interested in seeing a little bit more about what I'm about to get into, do me a favor, stay tuned. Now before we get too far, I would like to say thank you very much to Joe Flowers himself, who did provide this for review. And so here, again, the Gryphus Bowie by Condor tool and knife. Designed by Joe Flowers, just a really cool design. The Gryphus Bowie has a 6.74 inch blade, an overall length of 11.42 inches. It is 0.2 inches thick, or in other words, 5 millimeter stock thickness. It weighs in at 16.23 ounces, made of 1075 high carbon steel. This has an interesting finish. This is a saber ground knife with a flat ground primary bevel and a secondary V-grind. The handle's made of Micarta, and this does have a Kydex sheath with a leather belt loop. Generally speaking, it's a really cool finish and a great feeling blade. This knife is a fantastic performer. So here, as you can see, getting into the firecraft tasks, the first thing for me, I really do typically need to carve myself a baton. Now sometimes I have them laying around the house, but for this test, getting to some good quality slicing tasks, the Gryphus Bowie, very comfortable in the hand. And the first thing in my initial impressions, not only does it index well, but it's very easy to find the edge geometry. If you've been watching my channel, you've heard me say many times, sometimes knives, just naturally, you can find that V-grind and really control the slicing capability. And in this case, that is absolutely the case with the Gryphus Bowie. And other times, you know, knives just struggle. You glance across the wood, well, you can see that is definitely not the case here. This Gryphus Bowie, everything from deep bite and just hogging out the wood to lightening up and getting some good controlled slicing capability, the Gryphus Bowie can do it. Now this does have a full handle, indexing very well. I have a large size hand and you can see my hand fitting nicely on this handle. There is a bit of a palm swell. Leveraging a couple of different grips, you can see this has a nice ramp on top of the blade with some subtle jimping. The jimping is not overly aggressive. It's got enough traction to keep your thumb on the back of the spine, but it's not sharp to the point where it's going to tear up your thumb. And just getting a little more control with the thumb on the back edge of the spine, no problem at all. So whether or not you go with that full fingered grip or you get your thumb up on the back ramp of the Gryphus Bowie, this is going to do a mighty nice job. And my baton is ready for some action. Now if there's one thing that for me personally I do like, it's a bit of a finger choil. With none on this blade, you're kind of left a little bit with just that full-handled grip, but not a big deal. Turning the corner here into some tougher tasks, I really love to beat on my knives, and well, I know batoning sometimes can be a little bit controversial. Not in my mind. It is a great, controlled, and effective way to split down your firewood. So getting to use here, you can see getting my baton, slamming down on the backside of this Gryphus Bowie. The 1075 high carbon steel should have absolutely no problem with these tasks, and well, lo and behold, no problem at all. You can see here doing a nice job splitting down and through the wood, and because this is a saber ground knife, well, you can see it's doing a wonderful job translating the crack all the way down the wood. It's fairly thin overall at 0.2 inches, or in other words 5 millimeters thick. It's not like a 1/4 inch beast of a blade, so it is going to be stout, yet at the same time not overly built, and I kind of like that about this. It's stout enough, it's tough enough, and with a good quality carbon steel, you're not going to have any problems, and it still does a nice job wedging down and through the wood. Now keep in mind, I am splitting a couple of different types of wood here. At my property, I have a really gnarly, twisted maple, and that's what you're seeing here, just really curved grain, really stubborn, and really a tough task for these knives. One thing to consider, because of the unsharpened swedge on the back of the spine, you will find it's definitely going to beat up your baton, but even at the same time, not a big deal. But just something to consider, that between the fact that this has a very pronounced Bowie clip point and the fact that it has that unsharpened spine, you're definitely going to beat up your baton. But again, just getting to some hard use, slamming down and through this twisted, gnarly maple, and the Gryphus Bowie doing a fantastic job with the batoning overall. Now, a couple last details on the batoning tasks. Not a ton in the way of shock through the handle. This is going to be a good durable material between that 1075 high carbon steel, but also the durable micarta handles. Really, this can take a pounding, and you can see here splitting piece after piece, getting to some good work and even some larger pieces. And I was very happy with the overall capabilities, not just for the carving tasks, but definitely with the batoning. Now, because this is a Bowie, I definitely like to stab down and through the wood, and you can see some deep penetration. This for me is a great test for the quality of the steel, making sure that there's no problems with the heat treat. And this for me, stabbing down through the wood, twisting and prying and popping the little pieces apart, is a very important and effective means for me to split down through the wood and get some smaller pieces. Especially when you have wet wood, this really does come to play in wet environments. So the ability to get down through the wood, split it into smaller pieces, and really take advantage of the fact that this is a stabby knife, this can definitely do it. And it does have a reasonable guard on the handle, so the Gryphus Bowie doing a nice job and a good secure grip. But what about some of the finer carving tasks? At this point, I've been wrecking on the blade, slamming down through the wood, testing the heat treat, and now I need to get into some finer curls. Well, again, no problem at all. The edge geometry on the Gryphus Bowie is awesome, and the fact that it has a nice continuous belly from the tip all the way to the handle means you're going to have a real nice effective slicing capability on this blade. You're not struggling to find the edge, you're not struggling to establish curls, and if anything, this is doing a wonderful job getting some nice medium curls here, and this is going to be absolutely instrumental in my ability to get the fire started. Now you can see here a full hammer grip planing down the wood, nice and comfortable and no problem. Again, I'll go back to my point. I do sometimes like to have a finger choil, and especially for these detailed carving tasks, but at the same time, not a big deal. The Gryphus Bowie handle, nice and comfortable, has that palm swell, fills out your hands wonderfully, and with the nice micarta and the stout pins, this just feels really secure in your hand. So doing a wonderful job in getting a real good start for my tinder bundle. Here you can see working on a little bit of fat wood. Now, fat wood's a funny substance. Some knives really take to it very well. Other knives just absolutely struggle. And in this case, the Gryphus Bowie doing a nice job. You can see here splitting through it easily, cracking this, and even though that fat wood has a good resin content, no problem at all. And what about slicing? Well, again, some knives just literally glance right down the fat wood. And that's kind of why I like to test my knives the way I do. But in this case, the Gryphus Bowie really excelling, taking some nice slices big chunks, and at the same time even capable of taking those fine dainty curls. So the Gryphus Bowie is extremely capable, very enjoyable, feels great in the hand, is capable of doing those harder slicing tasks, and in this point getting some really important tinder for my tinder bundle. This is a huge factor and a great way to start my fire. Now, taking this a step further, what about getting some fuzz? Here you can see using the unsharpened swedge, trying to get a little bit of fuzz. It did struggle just a bit to get some bite, but what about further up on the spine, getting to that nice squared off spine just above the jimping? Well, bam! This is absolutely perfect. So not only do you have the jimping, which is nice on that thumb ramp, but leveraging the spine a little bit squared off, this is just completely ripping through this fat wood and doing a wonderful job. Now, one thing I like about the Gryphus Bowie, because of that belly, you definitely have the ability to do some chopping. So here, chopping at some just simple grasses, processing this down and getting me a nice little tinder bundle. This is going to be sweet. And getting my entire fire lay ready to go. Here you can see striking the ferro rod in a couple of different ways. So attempting to use the unsharpened swedge, this is going okay. I'm scraping down some of the magnesium off of that ferro rod to give me some additional ignition source, and then leveraging that real sharp squared off part of the spine. Here you can see, boom, not too much difficulty in getting things going with ease. And the fact that the Gryphus Bowie is just a little bit longer helps me process my material and then manage my fire when I need it. But at this point, a real good spot. I got my fire going. This Gryphus Bowie is just awesome. I do have to say, I'm very impressed and I like it very much. But what about turning the corner into some food prep? For me, a good camp knife not only has to be able to process for my fire, but it has to be able to process my food. And here's some very simple tasks, just working on a little bit of vegetables, cutting up pepper here. The nice thing is the sweep on the belly and the angle you get from that Bowie clip, extremely effective. So my hands are away from the cutting board. They're not dragging down on the surface. I can use the forward portion of the blade extremely effectively, comfortably, and it just feels really good in my hands. Doing a nice job slicing, and it's extremely effective. And even with alternate grips, like the pinch grip here, you can see getting forward on the blade, very controlled and very effective. And even after all this hard work, leveraging this knife, the edge is still really sharp. And there is one thing, if you go too deep on the blade, you do have a lot of blade depth as you work down from the tip all the way towards the handle. But if you work forward towards the tip, no problem at all. And a nice size blade, and you can see just doing a wonderful job. So the Gryphus Bowie, not just excellent at the fire prep and the woodscraft tasks, but actually pretty good in the kitchen too overall. And last but not least, people might say, well, what about this crazy blade shape? It's very extreme. How do you get down to sharpening? I found the easiest way for me is just to keep up with it. So a little bit of a leather strop here, stropping the blade, getting it nice and back to pretty much, I would say, and I'm not going to say hair-popping sharp, but a serviceable edge. Very easy, and with the 1075 steel, that's going to work wonderfully. So first for me, leveraging the strop, and then I turn the corner a little bit and I actually go back to the ceramic rod. So a fine ceramic rod works very well, and I do like to get just a little bit of a toothy edge on my knives. So here you can see, first I went to the ceramic rod to kind of hone it back into place and further refining it on the ceramic rod. The 1075, awesome. The Gryphus Bowie, fantastic. Really easy to keep a serviceable and perfectly sharp edge on this knife, no problem. So what about the overall sharpness? Final little paper test. Pretty good. You can see here, slicing through the paper, not too much in the way of snags, maybe a little bit, but that's not a big deal. It's something I can continue to work with, and if I really wanted to, I could further refine the edge. But generally speaking, the Gryphus Bowie and the 1075 steel from Condor came out of the box very sharp. I was able to perform all these tasks and maintain my knife with ease. I absolutely love it. So all right, guys, there you have it. A look at the Gryphus Bowie. Very cool. Again, as you can see, a great slicey knife. Very, very comfortable in the hand. Feels awesome and is just a nice addition to the Condor lineup. Now, there's a lot of things about this that are just reminiscent of Joe's designs. This handle here, very similar to like the Bush Lore, for example. Just that pretty standard and almost a Coke bottle style. Very nicely sized. It fits my hands very well, so a large size hand. Just fitting nicely, and just a really cool, big bellied, slicey blade. Just a real slicey blade. Great edge geometry and pretty sharp out of the box. Now, sometimes Condor's knives do struggle a little bit with their edge, but this one was really very serviceable and very sharp. So doing a great job, nice controlled slicing, and even some of those other harder style tasks. So batoning, no problem. Splitting of the wood, no problem. Could you use this for some limbing? Yeah, you absolutely could. And that's where this knife really starts to resonate with me in a larger size. I would love, and I asked Joe to think about this, make this Gryphus Bowie in a larger style blade. Add a deep ricasso with a finger choil so you can get up on it and just make this that sort of mid-sized survival knife with the ability to do some chopping. This thing would really sing, and maybe upscale the handle just a touch for the larger knife. Ooh, this thing would be sick. Now, overall, what do I think of the sheath? The sheath is okay. It starts with the right style of design elements, in my opinion, but then it just falls a little bit short for really practical carry. For me, it's the belt loop. The kydex itself, not a big deal, but the sort of belt loop and the way that the knife holds on, it just leaves it a little bit lacking. For me, what I would really like is the ability to put this knife back in the sheath. So from that perspective, the kydex, pretty good. This like pretty much locks in. It's not going to fall out like without really manhandling it out of here. So for general use, while I have it on my belt and as I'm going through my different tasks, I kind of just want to take the knife and just reinstall it back into the sheath, click it into place, and just sort of leave it. And then when I'm on the go and I'm hiking through my areas and I want to be extra careful that the knife doesn't fall out, well, at that point, you can leverage the strap. But the fact is, without the strap and just the way it's weighted, this kind of dangles around a little bit funny and then it ends up upside down. And I don't know really if there's a whole heck of a lot that could be done for this. It just is a little difficult. So would maybe more of a leather style sheath be better for this? I don't know. I'm still up in the air about what the right thing to do is. Haven't quite solved that in my mind. But it does make it just a little bit difficult. The only other thing that maybe could be done, using these holes here, making more of a stiff kydex backer, and at that point, that kydex backer would hold the knife on your belt. It is nice that this has a little flex and give, but it just is a little bit cumbersome. I struggled with it just a bit. But other than that, just a really cool blade. So generally speaking, I am a big fan. I like this Gryphus Bowie quite a bit. I think it's a really cool, unique design. I love the design aesthetic. Really cool having this sort of, I don't even know what you'd call that. Sort of looks like alligator scale. In fact, this entire blade sort of has that reptilian look, which is definitely sort of reminiscent of some of the areas that Joe goes into down in the jungles, and it's just a really, really cool addition to the Condor lineup. And so again, I would like to say thank you very much to Joe Flowers for providing this for review. And for the rest of you, if you like this content, do me a favor, take a look at my Outer Limitless 2 channel, which is more on the tactical and firearm side of things. At this point, that channel is growing quickly. I have a ton of videos up there, so if you like what you see here on Outer Limitless, do me a favor and check me out on Outer Limitless 2. So alright guys, thanks for stopping by. I hope you like what you saw. I hope you found it a little bit informative. If you like what you saw, please like, share, and subscribe. And as always, thanks for stopping by. Take care now. I'll see you soon.